Hi everyone, this is Ermanno Frassoni, and today we have decided to speak some English. Our special guest is Perry McCarthy, the former driver of Andrea Moda Formula during the 1992 Formula One season, also known as the original Stig in the iconic television show Top Gear. So, in short, it's Andrea Moda time again. Welcome Perry, and thank you for joining Motorphone today.
Thank you for having me.
We are in 1992. How did you become a Formula One driver? Did you receive a phone call from Andrea Sassetti or what? Because I know you tested for footwork the year before.
Yeah, well, it was an unusual situation because Andrea Moda Formula, as you know, were new. And to start, they had two drivers. There was Alex Cathy and there was Enrico Battaglio. But the first two races of Andrea Moda didn't happen. And so I understand that Enrique and Alex said some bad things about the team, which I understand, really. And then Andrea said, oh, I don't want these drivers anymore. So they were gone and he needed two new drivers. So, of course, they had Roberto and then Roberto Moreno, and then there was one position left. So Andrea had been dealing with some people in Formula One and in Britain, and everybody kept saying Perry, Perry, Perry. So that was it. So that was my opportunity. I knew it wasn't a big team, and I knew it was going to be maybe a little bit difficult, but there was no other invitations for me to come into Formula One. I had no money, I had no sponsors, so I said yes. I'm the guy for you. So that's how it started.
And you were in Formula One.
Sorry?
You were in Formula One. It was an important thing.
Well, exactly. It's the opportunity. I mean, it had taken me 10 years of fighting to try to get to Formula One. Exactly what you said. The opportunity to go into Formula One, and you think, well, there's nothing else. Yes, yeah, this is what I want. But we were to understand how bad things were later.
What can you tell me about the super license to race in Formula One? How did you manage to get it?
Yeah, the thing about the super license is you have to have a super license to be a Formula One driver. But there are conditions on how to get that super license. One of them was if I had won the British or the Italian or the French or the German or the Japanese Formula 3 championship, which I hadn't because I was in Formula 3 many years before. The other thing was you had to have driven in one season, just driven in one season of Formula 3000. Well, I'd had for 2 years, 3 races in 1989, 1988, and then 3 races in 1989 because there was no money. So those races went very well for me, but I hadn't done a full season. So then I was in America for 2 years, and that was very, very good for me. So that kept my name around. So fine. So people think, yeah, Perry can drive Formula One, but the regulations, yeah, that was the problem with the super license. So normally I wouldn't have got a super license, but FISA, or the FIA, it was called FISA then, they made a mistake actually technically they made a mistake in giving me the license. And then when I got to my first Grand Prix, people understood there'd been a mistake, and then they said, oh, Perry, we want the license back. And I went, no. And they said, yeah. And then it all became a big mistake. And this is where I was very, very lucky. There was a lot of people inside Formula One who had a vote, who could vote to say Perry should be in Formula One. And that was it. So the main teams, which was Williams, Ferrari, McLaren, Minardi, actually, and also, sorry, what did I say? Williams, McLaren, Ferrari, Benetton, and Minardi. They had the votes. So they all voted for me. And then Max Mosley voted for me. That was important. And Bernie Ecclestone, that was important. And then Bernie and Max told everybody else to vote for me.
So, yes, they voted for you.
Yeah, my license was actually quite special because it was everybody saying Perry should be in Formula One. So that was my license, you know. So it was, as I said, really unusual.
What about the atmosphere in the Andrea Moda garage? The people, mechanics?
Yeah, there were a lot of people there that were trying, and there were some people that had a little bit of experience, but the organization was, you know, very inexperienced. There was, you know, they weren't doing it correctly. I mean, the design was already over 2 years old, but when they weren't paying the bills for the engines, they couldn't have the money for the testing, they couldn't do this. It was a disaster. And what they were trying to do, which I understand, but from the little bit of money and from the little bit of team they had, they could only try to organize one car, which was Roberto. So there was no attention to me or my car. So it was a disaster. So really, you know, there was the attitude inside the team, but outside, looking at the team, everybody in Formula One's going, who are these guys? What are they doing? You know? And then when I go out on the track, you know, with no testing and just 2 or 3 laps to set a time that was so bad, then of course people are looking at me going, he's useless.
Not easy.
You know?
Not easy.
So that's the problem, you know.
There are many stories about the founder, Andrea Sassetti. What kind of person and manager he was, in your opinion?
You look, it would be easy for me to sit here and say really bad things about Andrea because, you know, my opportunity in Formula One was, you know, damaged, very badly damaged by Andrea. On the good side, he's a young guy who is passionate, who wanted to own a Formula One team, who took the decision to say, I'm coming into Formula One. And even though we had no money in Formula One is still in life a lot of money, you know. So he tried to do something. He could be quite charismatic, you know, but I think that he made a lot of mistakes. I think that he tried to battle with Formula One rather than work with Formula One. He was saying, I'm doing things my way. And that was really stupid because there were a lot of people, I think, that were trying to help Andrea Moda, but he didn't help himself. And if you're not paying the engine people, then they don't deliver the engines. So then you don't go around the track. There were all these organizational things where we were a small team without much money, but it still could have been better if he had had the experience and understanding to just go, there are some things I have to do, which is normal, rather than fight everybody about other things. So, you know, clearly people inside the team recognize this as well. So, you know, the morale, you know, wasn't fantastic.
We can say he was very young.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, I was very young. Damon Hill was very young when we came into motor racing, but we're professional.
Yes,
you know, we're professional people. And, you know, if you say you're too young, then don't do it. You know, if you've got a lot of money, it means you hopefully are fairly intelligent. So you go in with a job, you focus on that job, and you get it done. But no, sorry, the excuse of he was very young. No, there's been younger Formula One team managers who know what they're doing.
What were your feelings in your first Formula One weekend with Andrea Moda Formula in Brazil?
Yeah, well, it's just the same story. It was a disaster. You know, I got to Brazil and the cars were not finished. Then I had the problem with the super license. And then when I got home, I understood, I learned that Andrea was trying to replace me with Enrico, who now had $1 million of sponsorship. So there was no support. So yeah, no, my immediate start with the team wasn't happy, you know? And also I'm a racing driver. I want to be in a racing car, on a racing track, trying to do what I'm doing. So none of these things were happening. So, you know, these questions, obviously, you know, it's the same answer, unfortunately. That it was a problem. You know, I came into Formula One like any other racing driver who believes they're fast enough. So your heart is to say, get me in, go, go, go.
Yes,
but
yes.
when everything else is happening, that's your job. So you don't understand. You're here saying, look, I'm here. I've done everything you want me to, everything I need to do. Now it's your turn. And when they're not doing that, then it was the same for Roberto. Roberto was really experienced racing driver at Formula One, again, with many small teams. He'd seen similar problems, not the same, but similar problems before, you know? So it's not the best day of Roberto's life either, to be joining Andrea Moda.
But do you think you could qualify the car like Roberto Moreno in the Monaco Grand Prix? What went wrong for you that day?
Well, I mean, I had one lap. Yeah, so I've never been to Monaco before. Yeah, there's a problem with the steering, the engine's misfiring, and I get one lap to qualify. So no, and Ayrton wouldn't have qualified on one lap in that car, you know.
Yeah.
But with Roberto, where it all happened really well for Roberto is that there were several very small teams that didn't have very much money. And many of those drivers didn't know Monaco. So suddenly, Roberto, just on talent, knew Monaco, you know? So if the Andrea Moda just kept going, you know, Roberto could get it around Monaco, you know, somehow. And that's the big thing. So that car didn't qualify for Monaco. Roberto qualified it for Monaco because he had the experience of Monaco. He's a great racing driver, and the others were not doing very well, you know. So it was just that one moment. So for me to have qualified at Monaco, no way, no, I'm not an idiot, you know. It's not in one lap.
Yes.
Maybe if I'd had 10, 15, 20 laps, maybe, but I just don't know, honestly, you know. But you need a car that's working.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, you drove in pre-qualifying on wet tires under the sun. Having said that, can you tell me something about your own race as a Formula One driver? I can imagine you were excited to wave the British crowd of fans.
I was excited to be a Formula One driver wherever I went, you know. And of course, as you understand, okay, I'm now in Britain, you know, and this is Silverstone. I know Silverstone, and there's the crowd, and there's a lot of people thinking, come on, Perry, you've got the chance. So it's even more now, you know, you're thinking, yeah. And then you're sitting in the pits and the time is going. And you're saying, I need to go out, and they're keeping you in the pits. And then suddenly they put wet tires on my car and it's dry on the track. And then they say, go. Well, yeah, this is insane. This is not Formula One. This is just stupid and also highly dangerous. If I was the team manager and you were my driver, if I put wet tires on your car, they are going to break after just a couple of laps, you know? So I'm now putting you in danger. They were doing that because they wanted to save the dry tires for Roberto's car. So I did one lap on the wet tires and I went fastest in that session on that lap. Yeah. Then of course they broke and I'm off the track and I didn't care by then. I'm still changing up on the grass and going fast. Then I tell you something, I got lucky. The clutch on the engine for the gearbox, it broke. Yeah. So then I couldn't go fast anymore because I probably was about to hurt myself trying to do something in that car.
Yes.
So then you get out the car and you look like an idiot, you know? So, you know, this is that you're seeing a pattern to this interview, aren't you?
Yes.
You know?
What was a typical day of work in the Andrea Moda garage during, for example, a day of pre-qualifying in Formula One?
I'm really sorry. Can you say that again for me?
Yes. What was a typical day of work in the Andrea Moda garage during, for example, a day of pre-qualifying?
No idea. You know, the pre-qualifying was 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
So after we did not pre-qualify, end of day.
Yes.
That was it.
Very brief.
You know. Yeah, totally brief. You know, it's like, you know, my job was to get there on Thursday, trying to motivate everybody to try to do a good job on my car. And that's, you know, very small team that, you know, yeah, I mean, we didn't have computers and everything. It was a laptop trying to get the things started. That was it. It was the, you know, don't confuse this with proper Formula One. Yeah. This was just like this tiny little team that had 2 cars in a truck. They got the cars out of the truck, put them into the garage, and then we're ready to go. You know, that was it.
What can you tell me about the funny phone call to a receptionist of Andrea Moda who wasn't able to identify you? It was a funny story, I think.
Yeah. No, that was the receptionist. I was in England and I called and she said, pronto, Andrea Moda Formula. So I said, hi, it's Perry. I want to speak with Andrea. And she said, Perry who? So I said, Perry McCarthy. And she said, what company are you from? And I said, I'm not from a company. I'm your racing driver. And she went, oh yeah, hang on. Andrea's not here. Call later. I went, thank you.
Funny, very funny, I think. What about Andrea?
And I had another racing driver sitting with me when I made that phone call. Another racing driver who drove for Tyrrell and Lotus, a guy called Julian Bailey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? And Julian could hear all this. And Julian was crying with laughter. He was just laughing so much. And I just put the phone down. I just looked at him and I went, you know?
Incredible.
Yeah.
What about Andrea Moda's headquarters in Italy? Do you remember something about the factory of the team?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was just this kind of workshop, you know. It's like it wasn't very big, and I think it was out in Ancona, and it just looked like a place where you would buy furniture or something. You know, there was an office, and then you went out the back, and then there was a workshop, and some benches with some tools, and then there was a truck, and that was it. That was That was the equipment, you know. But on that one, I didn't expect too much. You know, that wasn't a massive problem for me. This was a small team with no resources. So it's not all about a great big workshop and big this and big that, but you need people there who know what they're doing, and you need people who know how to organize and run and focus on what you're trying to do. So the workshop, that wasn't really a problem for me, you know.
At a certain point of the Formula One season, did you fear Italian driver Enrico Bertaggia could take your seat at Andrea Moda?
Well, he wasn't allowed to, because Enrico, after they chose me, Enrico found $1 million to get the seat. But the FIA, the FISA, that there are regulations on driver changes, how many drivers you could have. So when Andrea said, oh, okay, goodbye, Perry, we'll have $1 million with Enrico, Max Mosley said, no, you've had your driver changes that you are allowed. You have to keep Perry. So no, I wasn't worried about Enrico. I mean, yeah, if Enrico really wanted to drive, he could have been the one to stand next to the car for the remainder of the season. You know, there wasn't really much to lose, but it wasn't going because Andrea Moda had that they were not allowed to change the drivers because of the regulations.
Yes. I am curious about the Belgian Grand Prix weekend at Spa. I know you had serious problems with the steering wheel in qualify, and I heard some people say you risked your life. What can you tell me about that episode?
I mean, there were several races before then, as you know, where it was still just a joke, what was happening with me and my car. But there was an opportunity for me in Belgium because, as you've said, we were pre-qualifying. So pre-qualifying means that there were 32 cars out there. The slowest 6, you know, from 26 onward, we had to do this thing for 1 hour to find the fastest 4, and then they were allowed to go through to the proper qualifying. Hope this makes sense. Well, at Belgium, the Brabham team were finished. They had no more money, so they were out. So now there's only 30 cars. So that means no pre-qualifying. So that means for the first time, I'm now into qualifying sessions, you know? So the idea is that, okay, Belgium often rains, and I was always very, very fast in the rain. I know Belgium. So if the car keeps going, I might stand a chance of qualifying this car, because I don't think anybody in that car was going to be faster than me. I really don't. So this was my opportunity. So, but I knew if the car was not reliable, I knew I had a very short time. So on my first lap, I came toward Eau Rouge, which is very, very fast, and you must be very exact. So I was flat out, obviously, which you have to be. But as I turned in to begin the turn in, suddenly I went, it was just, you know, steering is very heavy because of downforce, but something was wrong. Now, normally I would probably go, I'm staying flat, but this was Andrea Moda. And so immediately I went, I'm braking, you know, but even after I'd done that, I'm now into the middle of the corner and the steering will not move. Now you've got the wall straight ahead at you, and I'm doing nearly 300 kilometers an hour. And the steering, there's the wall, and the steering won't move. And then, so please remember, all of this took less than 1 second. Okay. So now I'm trying to turn the wheel, and I just, because I'd taken some speed off the car, I just managed to turn it. I'm off the track, up along the wall like this, and up the other side. So I survived. So now I'm slow, at slow speed. Steering works. steering can turn. So I go, okay, now, believe me, I've gone like that, you know, but now I'm back into thinking. So now I go a little bit faster, and the faster you go, the more downforce. Even on the Andrea Moda, we had downforce, yeah? So now it's being pushed down. Now I know what's happening. When you turn the wheel, you turn the shaft, and that goes through to turn the steering arms, yeah? So you can turn the steering arms. But if you've got the box there, and if the box is flexing, the arms won't come in, yeah?
Yes.
So that's what was happening. So with the load, pushing it down on the steering rack, yeah, the steering rack was bending, which doesn't allow the steering to come in. When you go slower, no downforce, so the car comes up. So now the steering arms can come in. So I knew that immediately. So when I came into the pits, I said to them, guys, the steering rack is flexing, you know? And they said, yeah, we know. And I said, how do you know? And they said, because we tested it with Roberto's car last week. So I said, so you knew the steering rack was flexing on Roberto's car, so then you put that on my car? Yeah. So really, that's when the word then got to Bernie. That's when this story then got to Max and everything. And that's when the team were banned. Because that, well, what do you think?
It was not an easy situation, of course, and dangerous, very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Yeah. If you do that to a driver at Spa, with the event I just told you about, I did everything right, okay? And I had a lot of skill to do it. I'm saying those two things, okay?
Yes.
Here's the third thing. Here's the third thing. I had so much luck as well, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Because one tiny bit more, and that driver, me, would have been in, not on the side and bouncing off, I mean in, at 300 kilometers an hour, because they didn't know what they're doing on putting a fault position back on their driver's car. Now, this isn't Formula One, you know, this is now stupid. And everybody in the pits knew about this, and they could not believe what this team had just done.
But what is your opinion now about the experience at Andrea Moda? Because racing fans remembers you as the Andrea Moda driver, and you gain popularity even with your autobiography, Flat Out, Flat Broke, Formula One the Hard Way. I think you are not so unlucky as someone likes to tell. Time have changed your point of view?
It's such a difficult thing, you know, because the funny thing is that our conversation has been quite serious. So then that gets me into being serious, you know? So you've got the serious side of me here, talking about what it's meant. A lot of the other stuff, because I am stupid, I've got a very big sense of humor. I could actually look at nearly all of it and just start laughing, you know, and just go, this is insane. And then, of course, everybody in motor racing knows what I'm like, you know, just to have fun and have a laugh. So that's why I wrote the book, because sure, inside the book, there was stuff, honestly, that was very, very upsetting, you know, because you're trying to get somewhere with no money and no opportunity. You keep trying to make it happen. But then the other side of things is how funny some things are when it just keeps going wrong all the time, you know. So that's why I think that the book has been pretty popular, because most people's lives aren't, you know, a bit difficult. But I'm not really the kind of person who accepts no. You know, I just have to always find a way. So I think that that's where people find it funny, and it's been a really lovely thing for me on how many people have really enjoyed the book. Yeah, all the way around the world, you know. And that's, I think I told you, didn't I? I'm now doing an audio book.
I hope in an Italian edition one day, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to wait for that a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. If possible, would you like to drive an Andrea Moda in an event like Festival of Speed at Goodwood or maybe elsewhere?
No, no, I survived, and I was very, very lucky to survive last time. Yeah, that's enough. But thanks for the offer. Thank you.
Even if you drive slow, not fair.
No, it just doesn't really, you know, it just doesn't, there's just no point for me to do it. You know, I mean, yeah, I was very fortunate that after Andrea Moda, I was testing for the Williams Formula One team. I was testing for the Benetton Formula One team, and driving those cars was Formula One. That was being a Formula One driver. Everything. The Williams, the Benetton, of course, so much faster, but also so much safer, because the team knew what they were doing. The car was prepared correctly. So yeah, it's not my dream to return to the Andrea Moda, you know.
Yes.
I can imagine looking at the car, and the car looks up at me and says, "I'll kill you this time."
Okay.
You know.
Do you have an unknown episode at Andrea Moda to tell to Motorphone TV? Something curious.
Something what?
Something curious or funny.
There was nothing really that funny, to be honest, you know. You know, it's at the German Grand Prix, I had one lap. At the Canadian Grand Prix, I'm there and our engines didn't arrive.
Yes.
At the French Grand Prix, my wife and I went to the French Grand Prix and the team didn't arrive. And you're standing there, you know. Yes. So it's just yeah, it's, you know, but you know, the funny thing is that a lot of the F1 teams could see how determined I was. Instead of just saying goodbye, to just keep staying there, to just keep trying to make something work. So I did receive offers for the following year in Formula One, but they needed just a little bit of sponsorship. But at that time, inside the Formula One year, because we had no money, we said goodbye to the house. So we had no house, we had massive debts, no money, and I couldn't get sponsorship. So there was no opportunity to keep going, you know?
Yes. When did you understand the season at Andrea Moda was over? Was it at Spa or only in the Monza round? And what do you think about that dramatic farewell from Formula One at Spa?
Oh, well, no, I knew that it was over at Spa because I'm determined, but I'm not completely stupid. That was the last time. You know, they put me in a car where me, or if it had been Roberto in that car, or Enrico, or Alex, or whoever, they could have been killed. You know. Now, you know, I've been racing for a long time by then, so you know, the thought of being killed isn't on my mind every day of the week. I'm a racing driver, and that is it. But when they're going to kill you because they're complete idiots, that's when you stop with the team. Before then, I'd made some excuses for them. Before that, I thought, oh, okay, maybe things are going to get better. Maybe it can work. But when they do something like that, no, that's when you finish. You know, no driver, unless they're insane, is going to return to a situation like that. but they were gone. So that was it.
Yes. And what happened after Andrea Moda?
Well, it's after that I was trying to think, how can I get back into Formula One? You know, I'd managed after all these years to get in there. Can I be a test driver to a top team? Can I work with that team so that they maybe say, oh, he's great, we need to have him as the race driver? Because Damon Hill had been driving for the Brabham team the same year as me for Andrea Moda. Now, Brabham was slow. Brabham didn't have any money, and I think Damon qualified for one race, which was the British Grand Prix. But the big thing for Damon was that he was the test driver to Williams. Then, of course, we got 1993, and nobody expected this, but Nigel Mansell went goodbye. So Nigel Mansell left the team. Suddenly, there's a gap. And that was the opportunity for Damon. Yes. So that was fantastic for Damon. So you kind of think, is there something similar? But then, of course, by then, a lot of people wanted to be test drivers. So again, it's like a race seat. You're fighting to try and get that position. So I had a couple of bits of work, but then, of course, the main job with Williams, it was me or David Coulthard. Well, we were both fast, but David is 10 years younger and had some connections, and they chose David. They had to choose me or they had to choose David. So that was, you know, that's it. And they made a good choice. I mean, David is a great racing driver.
Yes. You tested also for Benetton, I remember.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah. I was with Michael there for a few days, and I was working on the active ride special technology suspension system. And so I had it was really nice to, you know, have a lot of conversations with Michael Schumacher, and we talked about this, but they didn't want Michael to drive it because the system wasn't completely good just yet, if you understand what I mean.
And then you became the original Stig on a BBC channel.
Yeah, I mean, that was fun. I mean, after Formula One, I had to take some years away from motor racing because, you know, no money. We had to, the family, I had to get something, find a new house, try to do something, you know. But then bit by bit, there were opportunities to come back in. So I signed with Lotus for the World Championship in GT, then with Chrysler for Le Mans, then with Panos for the full season of the GT World Championship. And then after that, then I was kind of getting better and better again. And then Audi came in and took me. And then it was after Audi, and then I launched my book, and it was at the book launch, the party that we had, that Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear was there and said, Perry, we have an idea. And of course, that was it. We started, and I became the Stig. And of course, that became worldwide. So that was another unusual thing in an unusual career, you know?
A very beautiful story. So Perry, thank you very much for this friendly talk, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.